Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lovely Freaks podcast. I'm your host, Amanda.
And I'm Hannah.
And today we are going to talk about aliens.
Yay. I'm excited. I love aliens.
Yeah, we both like aliens a lot. We like hearing about alien abductions and alien encounters and UFOs and things like that. So we're actually going to talk about one small little story. This story happened in Pascagoula, Mississippi. And I kind of try to stick to our hometown. Well, we're not from Pascagoula, but from our home state, I guess you could say. And then we're going to tell you guys our UFO encounter. So we're pretty excited about that. Also, if you guys want to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, we're up there. At Instagram, it is at Lovely Freaks Podcast, and then on Facebook you can follow us there. I think you can type in Lovely Freaks Podcast on there as well and it should pop up. So thanks for everybody that has subscribed. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and leave this video a like if you like it, and then go listen to our other 2 episodes that are up. This will be the 3rd episode. We also have a trailer. You guys can go listen to that and give that a like as well. So I think that's everything we need to cover before we get started. Yeah. All right, without further ado, we're going to talk about the alien encounter. This encounter happened October 11th, 1973. Calvin Parker and Charles Hickson, they were fishing on the Pascagoula River in Mississippi. So Calvin actually wrote a book about this encounter. He was the younger of the 2 men. So he wrote a book, and it was called The Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story. I didn't actually, read the book. I thought about it, but I don't know. It says that in the book that he wrote, it contains photos and documents and news articles and even, a transcript, I guess, of when they went to the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
Or sheriff department. So I thought about getting it, but I don't know, I'm cheap, and it was like 20-something bucks. I was like, if I don't like this, it's gonna be $20 I just wasted. But so most of the information I got from news articles and stuff like that. So that October day, they got off work and they decided to go fishing at an old abandoned shipyard, pier type thing. Mm-hmm. Calvin says that it was around 6 o'clock. And a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about, were in his own words. And a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about happened, that he's
just
talking
to him,
about.
not to his...
No, they happened to both of them.
Okay.
But a lot of the articles, he was the one telling the stories.
Story.
Yeah. So around 6 o'clock, it had just started getting dark. Calvin noticed that there was this bright light in the sky. And he thought it was the moon. But then he saw the moon, and the moon was really bright that night, which he thought was kind of weird. But he also saw this other light, and it was a blue light. He saw it reflecting off the water as they were fishing. Mm-hmm. And he said that he thought, okay, that's probably just the police. They're coming to tell us, we got to get out of here because this is private land or whatever. But he looked up, and he realized that the light was coming from some sort of craft above them. Calvin says, and I quote, "A big light came out of the clouds. It was a blinding light." Calvin claims that from what he could tell, the craft was kind of shaped like a football, although there were lights all the way around it. But he said it was kind of hard to tell too because it was really bright, blinding,
Okay, so it was silver, shiny.
He doesn't ever really say what colors the lights were or anything like that. He just says that, it was a blue light.
Okay. So it was he couldn't look at it, it was too blinding, but he could see the shape.
Yeah, he could kind of make out what the shape was, and it was kind of shaped like a football.
That's weird. I've never heard of football.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, well, usually it's always round or a saucer.
A triangle sometimes.
Yeah, or a triangle. Mm-hmm. He said that he estimates it was about 80 foot around in diameter, and it made no sound at all. Sorry if y'all just heard that. My husband's playing with my daughter in the other bedroom. Okay, sidetracked. So, yeah, he said it made no sound at all, except for, well, he said it had a slight hissing sound, which I don't really know, like, the difference, but... So, then he claims that then it took a turn. I don't know what really that means. I guess it turned up on its side. And this is where it gets kind of crazy. So, 3 legless creatures floated out of the spacecraft. 3 legless. Yeah. Yeah, legless creatures. Which I thought was really strange. Yeah, so 3 legless creatures, which I've never heard of anybody say that they've seen an alien that was legless, but there's a first for everything, I guess. One of the crafts, he says, one of the creatures, he said one of the creatures had no neck and was gray with wrinkly skin. He said the other one had a neck and looked to be female. Like, I guess she had female features.
Oh, like
I don't know.
stuff,
I don't know if that means she had, like, breasts or maybe she just looked
longer
more feminine.
Hair like hair, maybe.
I couldn't find what that meant exactly. But both of the creatures, they had, like, crab claw hands.
That is so weird,
Yeah.
but cool.
Yeah.
I've never heard, like, a description like this.
Yeah, it's really strange. So he didn't describe them as, like, you know, most of the time people describe them as tall and lanky and big heads or whatever, but he didn't do that. So it's really strange.
So they floated, so he was still
So
at
they
the
were,
pier.
yeah, they were all, so
floated.
Calvin and Hickson, they were seeing this, you know, thing float towards them, and these creatures float towards them out of the spacecraft. Then he says one of the creatures grabbed his arm. He was scared, but said that it was a feeling of, like, peace. Parker says, and I quote, "I think they injected us with something to calm us down. I was kind of numb, but went along with the program." So, like, he was scared, but whenever they grabbed his arm, like, all of a sudden he felt, like, calm and, like, okay, I'm supposed to go with them, you know?
Okay. So they must have, like, injected him.
I'm thinking
somehow.
probably, I mean, otherwise, you know, obviously they would be kicking and screaming and fighting.
Yeah.
But he said that they didn't feel like doing that at all. Calvin then says that they began kind of floating them into the spacecraft, him and Hickson. And they began to do physical experiments on the men. So I thought that was really crazy too. So he doesn't remember, like, walking into the spacecraft. He just remembers, like, almost like somebody, like, they grabbed him by the arm and then he just kind of floats into the spacecraft, which would be really weird. Now, he doesn't go into any detail in the articles that I read about the physical examinations. I don't know about the book. He may, but like I said, I didn't buy the book. But yeah, I wish he would have went into, but you know, a lot of people, when they talk about their alien abductions or whatever, they don't remember they remember going into the spacecraft, but then they don't remember exactly what they did to them.
Yeah, like they drugged them or something.
Yeah, kind of.
They must have drugged them.
That's what I'm thinking. So then after the exam, and after they probed and prodded them and all that, they took them back to the riverbank and they just laid them on the riverbank. Calvin didn't really want to tell anybody. Remember, he was the youngest guy. Yeah. And he didn't really want to tell anyone because he thought that everyone would think he was crazy, or, you know, he was actually he wasn't actually from Pascagoula. He was from another small town, but he came there for, like, work. And so he didn't want it to get back to people in his hometown. Plus he was about to get married and he just didn't want, like, the publicity and everything like that. But Hickson, on the other hand, who was an older man, he wanted to tell people and he wanted to figure out what happened to them. So they called Keesler Air Force Base first, which here in Mississippi, Keesler Air Force Base is like a military base, and it's down on the coast, which my husband goes there a lot. And then the Keesler Air Force Base told him to contact their local police because I guess they didn't really know what they were talking about. And they probably thought they were crazy. So they contacted the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. So after they contacted the sheriff's office, the sheriff's department went and picked the men up, and he actually thought, the sheriff thought that they were like drunk or they were lying or whatever.
Yeah.
So they interrogated them for several hours. They left the room and kept recording, going to see if they. So they left they interrogated them.
Yeah.
They left the recorder there, and then they left the room, but they left the recorder recording.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was hidden or maybe it wasn't. Maybe they just didn't realize. So the sheriff's office thought, okay, we're going to leave this recorder here. And obviously when we leave the room, like, these guys are going to be like, oh, we got them.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is a bunch of bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But actually they didn't, like, they kept talking about how terrified they were, the guys. They were, like, discussing, you know, I can't believe this just happened to us. And they kept it up. So the Captain Glenn Ryder of the Sheriff's Department said, quote, "We did everything we knew to try to break their story to see if they were lying. If they were lying, they should be in Hollywood." Basically saying, you know, they were really good actors.
When was this again?
This was in 1973, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, 1973.
So did they have a breath test? You know what I'm talking
breathalyzer?
about?
I don't know if they had breathalyzer. I think they did. Maybe? Question mark. They might have
But
came
if
out with
they
those in the
thought they were
80s.
drunk, they could have tested them.
Yeah. Well, they weren't drunk.
Yeah.
They figured that out. They thought they were when they first called in to the sheriff's department. So, but they weren't.
So they proved that they weren't. So that wasn't an excuse.
No, that wasn't an excuse for them to be, you know, talking all this crazy nonsense, or what the police thought was nonsense. So overnight, it became national news. Within a matter of days, there were tons of investigators out there. So they had, like, you know, the paranormal investigators and the people that love to investigate aliens. I'm not sure what they're called. The people that love to investigate aliens. Me! But, yeah, so there was tons of people out there. A lot of people called them liars, and some people said, well, maybe they had, like, an episode of sleep paralysis, which...
Well, that would be really weird.
That would be weird for both of them to have it at the same time.
Yeah,
like,
and the exact same story.
Yeah, the exact same story. And just the simple fact, like, sleep paralysis usually doesn't manifest in that way. It usually has to do with, like, you know, your own personal demons or whatever, or you might have, like, a ghost experience or something like that. So,
and if they were both lying, why did the younger guy was like, hey, I don't really want to be a part of this? Why wouldn't he be like, yeah, I saw that too, and they were both lying about it?
Yeah.
You know, he was trying to hide it, and the older guy wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. And tons of, like, alien enthusiasts flocked there, and they would, like, sit on the hood of their cars at night to, like, catch a glimpse of the spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
So it got pretty popular. Charles, Mr. Hickson, was 42 at the time of the abduction, and he loved talking about it so much that he actually went on Johnny Carson, like the Carson show, which I thought was pretty crazy. And Calvin, you know, said he was the younger one. He was actually 18, so there was a pretty big age difference between the two of them. But later on, Hickson... So Calvin would say that, like, there's no way that... It's not like Hickson got famous off of this.
Yeah.
Like, I think he was even... At one point, he was even having to, like, pay... Because I think Hickson died in 2011. So before that, Calvin was having to, like, help him pay some of his electrical bills and stuff like that. So it's not like they got rich off of it. And I think Hickson wrote a book, but... I couldn't find that one anywhere. I saw a mention of, like, him kind of writing a book, but the only one I could find was by Calvin, and he didn't write that one until later. Because at the time when this happened, after everything happened, and some people were calling them liars, some people were saying that they, you know, weren't liars, and there was just a lot of publicity. Calvin actually left, got married, he went to a different state, and he kind of just, like, put it behind him. So I guess until recently, I think it was 2018, was when he did an interview with the Sun Herald. And today, like in the spot today, if you go to Pascagoula, there's a historical marker in the place that it happened at the Lighthouse Park to commemorate the story. So also, what's crazy about this is that wasn't the only person those weren't the only two people that saw something that night. So there was tons of people that came forward. Granted, it was after the fact, so you got to take what people are saying with a grain of salt. But after word got out, there was a lot of people that came forward and said, yeah, we saw blue light on the Pascagoula River.
Did they say it was the same shape as they were saying?
They didn't say that it was the same shape, but they did say it was a bright blue light. And they couldn't tell whether or not what shape it was.
When was this, when like the story just came out? Or
yeah, it was not too long after.
Like there was no details? Because I was going to say, if there wasn't any details and they didn't know.
Yeah, well that's the thing. Like I think it was, they were saying, they had already come out in the newspaper and everything, saying that they saw a big blue light. And so that's why I'm saying you got to take what these people are saying with a grain of salt. However, there was a woman named Maria Blair. She said, quote, she said, I was watching two men being abducted by a UFO. Oh, so she claims that she saw them literally floating up into the air. And she says that she saw the creatures and all that. But I don't know. All these people's accounts came out after the initial story had broke. So I thought it would be, it'd be kind of cool if it wasn't, like, if that night they got tons of calls coming in. Because, that episode of
Murder Mysteries?
No, not Murder Mysteries.
What was it?
Shout out to Bailey Sarian, though.
Oh, yeah. We watched so many things.
Oh, my gosh. What is it?
Yeah. It's on Netflix. Mystery Murder?
No.
Hang on.
Y'all.
Wait, you gotta...
It's gonna get on my nerves because I literally know.
Here, I'll look it up and you keep talking.
Okay. She's gonna look that up because I can't think of it right now. But that's pretty much the whole story. I mean, it's really short, like I said, a really short story. But I thought it was super crazy. And I thought the fact that, like, they had the legless creatures, like, that was insane to me. I've never heard anybody say that. And one of them, like, didn't have a neck.
Unsolved Mysteries.
Unsolved Mysteries.
I knew it was something with mysteries. Go ahead.
Okay. That was really bothering me.
Yeah,
I've only watched that show my entire life. I should know. Wow.
We have so many murder mysteries that we watch that, like, it gets tangled up, and I'm like, what are
murder
those?
Mystery?
Murder
makeup?
this, murder that. Which one?
Which one is it? So, okay, now we can talk about our story.
Okay.
So let's dive into that one.
I think we should start with, like, pretty much our entire family. Like, Todd.
Yeah, so
Granddaddy saw it.
I was going to talk about that, but I don't really remember every single detail. So let me just start by saying we had my grandmother. It was grandmama that saw it.
Yeah.
And it was my Uncle Todd. Rest in peace. And so I think he saw it first. And I think he said he saw it behind grandmama's house. Maybe, or maybe on the road behind her house. I don't remember. But he said that he saw, if I remember correctly, I believe that he said he saw like a big light or something like that. Do you remember that story?
Yeah. It was the exact shape too as
what we saw.
What Dad saw and everything, y'all. With the it was circular and there was a lot of lights and he saw it and it didn't make any noise and then it just like disappeared. Really quickly.
But I couldn't remember if he was driving on the road or if he was out in the middle of the field. I want to feel like it was like directly behind her house.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I know Grandmama was. She was driving home and it was around the area where she lives and Granddaddy was asleep in the passenger seat and I remember that clearly because he thought that maybe she was like seeing something because he didn't believe her. So she said that she saw a big bright light. That's what it was. And but I think that's all she saw. She didn't hear anything or...
Yeah, and then it just went away
quickly
without any sound.
Yeah, but it was a really bright light, like blindingly light. Bright, not light. So that brings us to what happened to us. So it was me, Hannah, my sister, but she was a baby, so you can't really contribute to the story much.
But I remember, I've heard this story.
Yeah, so many times. Yeah. And my mom and my dad. So for anyone that's going to think that I'm going to be skeptical when I say this, obviously all three of us seeing this in the car together, like I can understand somebody thinking that my uncle didn't really see it because he was by himself. My grandmother didn't really see it because she was kind of by herself. My granddaddy was asleep in the car when she saw it. So all three of us saw the exact same thing, and to this day, if you ask us this story individually, we'll tell you the exact same thing that happened. So we were driving home down, I'm not going to say where my parents live, but we had to go south on Highway 49, and Highway 49 is really long for anybody that knows. So we were driving, and I remember seeing something right over the top of the trees, and I thought it was an airplane. I was young, but I wasn't that young. I was probably like 12, 13, somewhere in there. So you were like 2 or 3. And I remember telling Mom, I was like, hey, what's that? Because I watched it for a while and I thought, okay, that's just an airplane. It's just going to keep going, but it never moved. Like it was just there.
It was just floating.
Or either it was like going with us. I couldn't figure out which one. So it freaked me out. But I said, hey, what's that in the sky? And Mom looked over and Dad looked over and they were like, I don't know. And, you know, Mom, she was like, what is that? Yeah. And Dad was like, I don't know. What is that? So we finally get to where it continues to, like, stall in the sky or follow us. We can't tell which one it's doing. But we finally get to where we're going to go off and we're going to go towards where we live. So we get to some railroad tracks. We have to go over these railroad tracks to get to the other side where our house is, or where our property is. So we get to the railroad tracks and we stop. And when we stop at the stop sign, the spacecraft or UFO, whatever you want to call it, it stops too. But at the time, Mom couldn't tell, like we couldn't really tell, is it just hovering there or is it literally stopping when we stop? We couldn't tell. So what Mom does is she kind of like punches it real fast and she stops abruptly, and when she stops it moves for a second and then it stops. So it was following. It was like catching up. Yeah. And then at that moment we could tell like, oh, it's following us. Yeah. And like, I don't know if you've ever had like your heart drop to your butt, but but that's the feeling that I had of like, this is real. This is real life. This is happening. We're fisting to get abducted. Like,
yeah, I would have thought that too.
Yeah. That or, you know, the government's fisting to kill us. I don't know which one. So my mom freaks out and she's like, oh my God, it stopped when we stopped. And she did it again and it did it again. And it moved and then stopped. Almost like it wasn't right on track with us, but it was catching up.
Do you think it was mimicking y'all?
I don't know. It was weird. So Dad was like, get to the house. Like he freaked out and he was like, get to the house. So she drives like super fast to Grandmama's because we all live on
the same property.
So my grandmother's house was first, but he wanted to get to Grandmama's and get out and go get her and let her see it because he didn't want us to be the only ones that saw it. I guess he thought, you know, he didn't want anybody to call us crazy or whatever. So we get to Grandmama's house. This is where shit gets real. So we get to my grandmother's house, and my dad goes, he jumps out of the car and he runs inside to get my grandmother. And at that time, the spacecraft or UFO was directly above our car. And I remember being the scaredest I've ever been in my entire life because I thought, okay, we're supposed to get sucked up in this thing and that's it. I'm supposed to. It was terrifying.
Was it really
I remember
close?
It was like tree high. Okay. So it wasn't like super close, but it wasn't
too far away.
No.
Not like a plane. It was like
high it was you could clearly see it. Yeah. And have you ever do you ever remember something from when you were younger not that much younger. I mean, like I said, I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I think I was 13, maybe 14. I was older. So I clearly remember it, but it also kind of feels like a dream. Mm-hmm. But then I was like, I know it wasn't a dream because Mom and Dad were there. Yeah. But so I remember Mom stepped out of the car, which, first of all, what?
And then you stepped out of the car.
And then I stepped out of the car.
Because, of course, if your mom's going to step out of the car, you're going to step out of the car.
And so, which, to this day, I think back, I'm like, that was dumb. We should have just, like, put that bitch in reverse and, like, left as it was, like, hovering over us. But whatever. So, we both step out of the car and we look up. And all I remember seeing is that it was really, really round. I mean, we're talking probably the size of a bus, like a school bus. Okay. But it's in a circular, circular saucer type. And we saw lights underneath it. There was lights all the way around it.
What color were they? Were they like...
I just remember them being white lights and maybe some blue, but I can't remember exactly what all other colors there were. So there were lights all the way around it, and then there was absolutely no sound. Like, none at all. Not even a hissing sound like the story that I was telling you.
Was the trees moving at all? Like, I know it was close, so it didn't...
That was another thing I was going to say.
Or anything?
No. So it wasn't like, if you have, like, a helicopter, if you have blades on something, there's going to be, like, trees are going to be whipping around. No, it was directly above the tree line. Like, we're talking... If an alien would have, like, reached his arm out, touched the tree. Like, like, that's how close they were to the trees. Like, dude could have, like, tickled the treetops. So, it was directly above the trees. And it had absolutely no sound. And it was so still and quiet outside. Yeah. That was so eerie. It was like... You could have heard a pin drop like 2 counties away. Like, I felt like that's how quiet it was, which is really weird. Like a deafening silence. And
it's weird too because in movies they make like a weird like sound too.
In movies?
Like in movies when they talk about UFOs and stuff.
Like but there's like not. But most people
but
that
real life experience, most people are like, no, it was silent.
Yeah, it was super silent. And so all we remember is it turned up on its side, kind of, and then we blinked our eyes and it was gone. Like, literally, you just blink and it was gone. And Daddy said that he had just stepped out of the house with Grandmama when it, like, just...
Took
off. Yeah, it was crazy. So after that, I slept on the couch for a long-ass time. Yeah. But do you remember, I might freak you out with this story, no. Do you remember when you were little what you would say? When you were like 5 and 6? Mm-mm. You remember telling us that you would see like a bright light in your room? You don't remember that? You don't remember
shit. Have they taken me? Am I really an alien?
I don't know. You don't remember us? You don't remember telling us that? I think it was, you were like 5 or 6, and you only did it, I think you only said it like once or twice. One time, I think you actually told Mom something about, like, you woke her up and you said that there was, like, a bright light outside your window and you were, like, you couldn't sleep because the light was so bright or something like that. She thought that maybe you were just having, like, a dream or something. So, and then I think it was another time when you told us that there was a bright light in your room, like, from your window, coming from your window. Yeah. Crazy.
I'm an alien.
Yeah. they were just checking on you.
They saw me and they're like, oh, that's a cute baby. And then they checked up on me. She's a redhead. Maybe we need to check into that.
We need to check on her. So, yeah. That's the end, you guys. We have reached the end of this podcast episode. I hope you guys enjoyed our story.
Also, comment down below your stories. We want to hear your stories about alien experience.
Right, yeah, you can comment any alien experiences you guys have had. You can comment down below. And also, if you have an alien experience that you want us to tell, don't forget to go to our Instagram or Facebook and I might even put our email, because we have an email, and I might put it on there so that way you guys can email us your stories, because we really want to tell like a listener story. I think that'd be really fun.
Like we can just tell a long list of everybody's story.
Yeah, we'll pick like a few, but definitely write like descriptive detail, like you're writing a script for someone to read, so that way, because you know, obviously we don't know your story, we don't live your life, so
yeah,
just
and
make
like
sure
what it looked like and everything. See if it was the same as ours.
Yeah, any alien stories that you guys have. Also, if you have any other stories that aren't alien related, you can write those too. I mean, we'd love to hear any kind of things that you guys have.
Like ghost or...
Oh, yeah, definitely ghost experiences. I think the next thing we're going to do is different types of... So, there's this one that's also a Mississippi story. It's the Witch of Yazoo. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
It's pretty interesting, but it's kind of short. And I couldn't find a lot of detail on this so-called witch. Well, I might not need to say so-called, because she might come haunt me, this witch. So, I don't know. I might throw like a bunch of different ones in there. I really want to do Marie Laveau from New Orleans.
I haven't heard that one.
I think. You know, that's on the...
American Horror Story?
Yeah,
okay.
I really want to do that one. That'd be really fun. So I might pick different ones from different states and do that. I probably should have done that with this alien one, because it was so short, the alien story of the guys. But,
but
we threw in ours. Yeah, and we threw in our experience. So hopefully this was the right length for you guys. I guess that's it. Can you think of anything else?
No.
Yeah. Definitely crazy. A lot of people, like, a lot of my boyfriends that I would tell that story to, even my husband, like, I mean, we've been together for 11 years, but still to this day, he just kind of looks at me like, probably didn't happen. Like, you know, I'm just like, no, it happened. No one believes me. And that's the frustrating thing.
Yeah.
I think that's why I do believe a lot of these alien abduction stories, because...
Why wouldn't people believe them?
Yeah.
There's got to be extra life. And also, this year, we've kind of proven it, because we heard,
well, the government,
the government.
They came out and
like,
said...
you'd think people would be like, hey, we are not the only ones. Come on, guys.
Yeah, I definitely don't think we're the only ones in the universe. And, like, I'm a Christian, so... We're both Christians. But I still believe that there's other life. I mean, I don't think that we're the only people that God made, you know? Yeah. And that might start a riot debate. But that's just my beliefs. I don't believe, you know, I think if God made us, he could have made other things as well.
Yeah.
So, anywho, but we hope that you guys have a great night, and go ahead and give this video a like if you liked it, and hit subscribe and follow us, and then go follow us on all our social media. We'll have it linked down below. And that's it. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.